Hey everyone, I'm Gevin.
And I'm Dave.
And welcome to episode 20 of Lowlights. On this episode, the season 1 finale of Lowlights, I sit down with the farmer from the great state of Montana, former US Senator Jon Tester. I talked to Senator Tester about growing up on his family's farm in Big Sandy, Montana, including what it was like to lose 3 fingers in a meat grinder accident when he was just 9 years old.
You can't go back in time. You can question what happened, why it happened, and all that stuff. But in the end, it happens, and you need to move on. And my parents made sure that I moved on. Never let me feel sorry for myself. Never let me use it as an excuse. Kicked my ass every day, and didn't treat me any different because I was missing 3 fingers on my left hand. And I think it made a better person out of me.
How he navigated the challenges of representing a state in the U.S. Senate that was so far from Washington, D.C.
Getting up at 3 in the morning, flying into Washington, D.C., getting there at 2 in the afternoon, never knowing what your schedule is, wasting a ton of time. And as a farmer, time is your most valuable resource.
Why he believes he lost his 2024 re-election campaign.
You know, there was a record amount of money spent in this race. They were successful in making me into something that I wasn't. And that's why I lost.
And what he would say to his Republican colleagues still in office.
I hope some of the Republicans watch this podcast, because the truth is you ain't doing your job. Your job is to put checks and balances on the president. And to be quite honest with you, and these guys are friends of mine, you guys got no balls.
Before we get into the interview, Dave and I share some big news about the future of Lowlights as we celebrate the end of our first season. And after the interview, Dave and I get into our long-awaited NFL season preview. What do we think is the best fantasy football advice for those maybe just getting started? What storylines are we watching most closely heading into the regular season? And who do we think will hoist the Lombardi Trophy as the winner of Super Bowl 60? Stick around to find out. So as you just heard, got a lot to get to in this episode, starting with, as promised, some big news. I just mentioned a second ago, this is episode 20 of Lowlights, and 20 is a great number. Shout out Barry Sanders. Shout out Ed Reed. Shout out, who am I missing?
Manu Ginobili.
No, great one. Scottie Pippen.
Pippen, yeah.
Scottie Pippen, But because 20 is such a great number, Dave and I have actually decided to make this the season finale of season 1 of Lowlights, and it's been a pretty awesome season. 20 episodes, 18 guests, and just want to start by saying thank you. None of this would have been possible without all of you guys tuning in week after week, sharing our episodes with your friends, liking our posts on X and on Instagram, on TikTok, on all the other social media platforms, and writing to us. So thank you for all of that. But along these lines, Dave and I do have some big news to share. We are actually in the process of looking for a new network home for Lowlights. We're very grateful to the Valor Media Network for helping us bring Lowlights to life. But Dave and I just believe that, for this show to grow where we believe it can go, it's just best for us to find a new partner. And the timing is actually perfect since we are at the end of season 1. But we just wanted you to know that if we do take a bit of a break, which we probably will, we just want you to know why. It's not going to be a long break, hopefully, knock on wood. But rest assured, we are not going anywhere. Lowlights, nope. Lowlights is not going anywhere either, except just to a different network. But we'll definitely, this is uncharted territory for both of us. So we'll keep you posted on this journey, how it shapes up. Make sure you're following us. Speaking of which, on social media, we'll put our handles on the screen in case y'all have forgotten. But I want to make sure you get our updates and so that you can be the first to know when we've found a new home and that we'll be back with season 2. We've actually started recording for season 2. That's put the cart before the horse, but
yeah, right.
Just
And we'll leave that out there. You'll have to guess.
Exactly.
You'll have to guess which guests we've already recorded interviews with.
Correct.
But yeah, exactly. It's not much of it. It's like, this is like one of those old school TV seasons where you do like 24 episodes and then the next season would start almost right away. It's like that.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So we can't wait to bring that to you. But Dave.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I think you said it, Gevin. I think I'm sure some of you were asking like, oh, are we going to have to subscribe to new channels, this, that, and the other? Like, we're figuring all that out. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
We'll let you know. The goal is to maintain everything and have you all not really have to worry about it.
Totally.
But just to take you into the back end of how this happens for a second.
How the sausage is made.
How the sausage is made. I mean, Gevin and I were approached by Ken Harbaugh, who's the head of the Valor Media Network. And every week we rely on Jordan and Philip to help us edit these episodes, take these raw files and actually turn it into something that you can listen to and watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so, we have an editor who actually makes that happen. We have producers who talk to us about the episodes, and, input those edits and get us the raw files to look at ahead of time to try to make sure that there's no, extra clips that end up in here and look at the graphics and all that stuff. And it takes a lot of work. I mean, honestly, I have a lot of newfound respect for podcasters after doing this with you for 20 episodes, Gevin. Because this is so much work, but, we couldn't have gotten to where we are now without, Philip and Jordan and other folks at Valor. And so, onward and upward, we're so excited. We're so grateful that you all, are listening, and, we can't wait to continue to have us in your life and continue to have, to come along for this ride with us.
Yeah. Well, Dave, we have lots to get to. Obviously, we have our great interview with Senator Tester. We also are going to do a little NFL preview at the end of this episode as well. So without further ado, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. It is such an honor to be joined by Jon Tester, the man himself, a farmer who represented the great state of Montana in the US Senate for 18 years as a Democrat, and who now co-hosts the podcast Grounded with Maritza Giorgio. And Grounded also happens to be the title of his memoir, so check that out too. But Senator, thank you so much for agreeing to the interview. This is really neat for me. I was telling you before we started recording that I flew to Bozeman to knock on doors for you last fall with my good friend and your former press secretary, Jill Riley. Shout out Jill. But sadly didn't get the chance to meet you. So I'm grateful now, to have the opportunity not just to meet you, but to spend a little bit of virtual time with you. So very excited, and thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you coming to Montana and doing your best to try to swing a few votes my way. It didn't work out, but that's life. But it's a pleasure to be with you on your cast. I look forward to this. Talking to a speechwriter for a presidential candidate, you've got to have a pretty good skill set yourself, so it's good.
I appreciate that. And, you're right, going back to the point of the election not going the way you wanted to, this whole podcast, Lowlights is what it's called. And that's really central to what we talk about on this podcast is, plenty of highlights to talk about, but what about those lowlights too? There's a lot that we can learn from those. So I definitely want to get into some of those lowlights, of course, including, what happened in November, but you're the perfect guest for so many reasons.
Well, I will tell you that, it wasn't all bad. I'll tell you that.
You look pretty happy, Senator.
It was an incredible honor serving in the United States Senate. I expected to do it a dozen years, and I ended up doing it 18 years, and we were able to get some good work done. But I'm going to tell you, the last 6-8 months have been incredibly depressing to watch from Montana, what's going on in Washington, D.C., and the fact that Congress has no mojo. They don't. And I hope some of the Republicans watch this podcast, because the truth is you ain't doing your job. Your job is to put checks and balances on the president. And to be quite honest with you, and these guys are friends of mine, you guys got in the balls. They're scared shitless of what the president's going to do to them. And it's happened before. But the truth is people who serve in the United States Senate and the Congress need to ask themselves why they're there. And if they're there to promote somebody who doesn't really give a shit about anybody but himself, that's the wrong reason to be there. And if they read the Constitution, Article 1 is pretty clear. The legislative branch has a pretty important role in our democracy. And to rubber stamp everything from the nominees to to administration that they were not prepared for what they're doing. And I think the last 8 months have showed that, to rubber stamping policies like tariffs, which need to be done by Congress, and they're letting the executive branch do it, to letting Ukraine dangle out there while he says, well, we'll give you 50 days before we do anything to you. And it's been 8 months and he hasn't done jack shit for Ukraine, a country that's fighting for their lives, for democracy and for freedom, to take away due process. Need I go further, Gevin? I mean, the truth is that there's plenty of things out there that Congress needs to step up and do. Have hearings on Signalgate, for Christ's sakes. All this stuff, and Congress isn't doing it. So the fact that I'm not there
That's why all of this is happening,
to watch all this shit rolling down the hill, is not all bad.
Right. Okay. So I promise you we're going to get to all of that, but I do want to start with something maybe a little bit lighter and perhaps less depressing.
Cool.
So it's 8:00 where I am on the East Coast. It's 6:00 where you are, and I want to make sure our listeners know that it was not my idea to do this interview so early in the morning. I wouldn't do that to you. This, in fact, was your idea.
You don't want to be burning daylight. You got to get up and get after it,
No, definitely. But there is this great reason why we are recording so early in the morning. And I wonder if you could share that reason with our listeners, because I think it really does encapsulate what set you apart as a farmer in the US Senate.
Yeah, well, so for nearly the last 50 years, I've been farming the land that my grandparents homesteaded. My parents turned it over to my wife and I in 1978. During my whole time in the United States Senate and in the state legislature, I've continued to farm. And it's not like we hire a bunch of people to do this. It's my wife and I. My son's out here now, and hopefully my grandson will be out here in a few years because I am getting older. But the bottom line is that we got harvest. This is harvest time of year. We've had trouble with the weather. It was interesting. You want to talk about weather in May? It was 90 degrees, hotter than hell. Couldn't get a drop of rain if you depended on it. And now, when it's supposed to be 90 or 100 degrees, we've been getting rain every day. And so that raises hell with the quality of the crop, and it also makes it tough to get the crop out of the field. So, but we didn't get rain yesterday, so I'm hopes we can get in the field, start cutting again this afternoon, and get some wheat in the bin and feed some people.
I mean, it's what a lot of people, I don't think, realize, the real impacts of things like climate change on farmers. You're describing how these weather events are atypical, and these weather patterns are not what you're expecting, and have implications on whether or not you're able to produce the crops that you need to feed your community.
Yeah, actually, agriculture is the tip of the spear when it comes to climate change. And I've said this before. I don't think I'm hearing enough from farmers about climate change, and I think one of the reasons for that is the farm program that provides a safety net, which, by the way, needs to be provided. But that safety net takes some of the pressure off of what are we going to do about climate, because the climate has changed here. I've lived here my entire life. I'll be 69 years old in about 2 weeks. And I can tell you that the climate has changed dramatically. I've seen things happen over the last 25 or 30 years that I never saw happen in the first 35, 40 years of my life. And the bottom line is that there's things we can do about it. The longer we wait, and by the way, might I add, the big, beautiful bill just did opposite of what you should be doing when you're dealing with climate change. And the longer we wait, the more draconian the actions are going to have to be to stop us from burning up the earth, quite frankly. And I say that when we have highs in the 80s when they should be in the 90s. But the truth is climate instability, maybe a better word for it, but it's not predictable anymore. And it wasn't predictable before, and now it's less predictable. So, it's true. Farmers are the tip of the spear when it comes to climate change. It is real. It is happening. It's having major impacts. For the guys out there and say, well, there's more CO2 in the air and plants need CO2, so this is a good thing. Take away those farm subsidies and see if it's a good thing.
Right. I think our listeners are just starting to hear why you were such a fierce champion of issues that impact farmers when you were in the Senate. And I do hope that some of your colleagues, folks who are in there now, take up the mantle, from you and advocate for these very important issues that affect farmers and, by extension, all of us, no matter where we live around the country, who depend on the crops and the products that farmers produce every single year. But I do want to stick on the topic, Senator, of working with your hands. And for those who are watching on YouTube, you'll notice that Senator is wearing Yeah. So he just did. Let me explain. But he's wearing a hat with two fingers on it, and the reason why is because when Senator Tester was 9 years old, he lost three fingers in a meat grinding accident. And Senator, I wanted to tell you that my grandfather, who's 96 years old and lives in Jamaica, shout out to Grandpa, shout out to my Uncle Junior, who lives down there too and listens to this podcast religiously. But he was a dairy farmer when he was younger and actually lost a finger too. I think his accident was more woodworking related, but just wanted to say that you guys have that in common. But anyway, Senator, this was a horrific experience, I understand. But what I thought was so cool is when I was driving around Bozeman with Jill, I saw campaign stickers and merch and T-shirts and signs everywhere with your now iconic two-fingered hand. And that's exactly what's on the hat that Senator Tester is wearing. For those of you who can't see it, who are listening maybe on Spotify, I remember Jill and I even took a selfie off of, it was like Frontage Road in Bozeman, and she was doing the hand thing. And so I'm just so curious, Senator, what was it like at age 9 going through that Lowlight, such a horrific, tragic event? And I guess, how does it feel now, so many years later, seeing something that once was so traumatic be turned into, I guess, something so triumphant, a campaign sign?
Yeah, I guess. So let me back up a little bit. For my dad went in the CCCs in the 30s and learned how to cut meat. So when he married my mom and they moved out, this is my grandfather on my mother's side's place, and they moved out here to the farm. Dad needed to supplement the income, so he set up a butcher shop, and they cut up meat in their basement for a little over 10 years, and then they built a butcher shop in the early 60s. This happened in 1966, actually, right before I turned 10. And I was helping my mother cut up some meat. My dad had broke down a front quarter and was in and getting some grain rolled for the cattle. And I was helping my mother, and I told her I wanted to grind the hamburger, and she said no. I said, "Oh, I can do it. I've done it before." And I did, and I ground the hamburger, and I was done grinding the hamburger. I don't remember sticking my hand in the meat grinder, but I do remember pulling it out. And I will tell you that I think I don't know for sure, but I think it hypnotized me. Quite frankly, the spinning of that auger very slowly, but I was lucky. That grinder was virtually brand new, and it sheared these fingers off. I still use that grinder. We still cut up our own meat.
Stop. You
And
don't.
if it were to happen today, it would suck you in because the clearance between the auger and the housing isn't tight. It's
Huh.
loose now because the grinders wore significantly. It's ground a lot of meat. But I will say this. It wasn't something that I would recommend anybody do. Get in fight with our equipment, you always lose. But my parents they never let me be handicapped. They never let me use this as an excuse for anything that I did. And quite honestly, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty cool. They never treated me any different. I went to school in a small town. I basically graduated from high school with the folks that I started first grade with. They never treated me any different. In fact, if anything, they abused the shit out of me over it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying they bullied me, but they didn't cut me any slack, which was good. And so I was lucky. I had a good set of parents, and I had good friends around me. That, by the way, if anybody gave me any shit about it that wasn't my friend, they were right there ready to back me up. But the truth is that they treated me the same way I'd always been treated, and I think that's really important. The thing that's amazing about this, Gevin, is that my dad was my mother, we piled in the car and we headed the 13 miles to Big Sandy to go to the doctor. Met my dad, and you can guess, being a parent now, I look back on this. My mom was pretty shook, and she. I never ever thought about it till she passed away in 2009. How she never let on that this affected her in any way, but it had to have. It had to have, because I'm sure that there was guilt there. The only person's fault it was my own, but I'm sure there was guilt. A 9-year-old kid. What's a 9-year-old kid grinding meat? Well, shit. When I was 9 years old, I was running a baler, and a baler's a hell of a lot more dangerous than a meat grinder. And it's part of life. And I can tell you, it's not something that, like I say, I would recommend. But I never did it again. and I have a tremendous respect for power equipment. And in the end, when I ran for Senate, um, I was a little bit different. I got a flat top haircut, got the permanent shaka. It was there. One of the things that did bother me, though, Gavin, I'll just tell you, and I'm talking too much, but one of the things that did bother me is when I first got in, there was a story written about my mangled left hand. And I will tell you, I never ever saw my left hand as being a mangled left hand. I've got a little finger, which is the most important finger, and I got a thumb. I can get in places and change oil filters on vehicles that I can't with this hand. I can do things. Now, there's some things I can't do. Can't go left on a basketball court very well. But the bottom line is that kids adapt, and they adapt incredibly quickly. I was a kid when this happened, and quite honestly, it happened. And you can't go back in time. You can question what happened, why it happened, and all that stuff. But in the end, it happens, and you need to move on. And my parents made sure that I moved on. Never let me feel sorry for myself. Never let me use it as an excuse. Kicked my ass every day, and didn't treat me any different because I was missing 3 fingers on my left hand. And I think it made a better person out of me.
That's such a powerful lesson, I think, for all of us, who are listening to this story, to remember that, let's say you're struggling with a disability. Your disability doesn't have to be your destiny. Or for those of us who, like your classmates did, have a friend who suffers an injury like you did, not to treat them any differently, and to affirm them. So I think that's a really powerful lesson. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think it's a beautiful thing. So, Senator, I do want to skip ahead to 2024. We're skipping through a bunch of years, but it's because, our time is short, and I want to make sure that we hear all of the stories from you. Here's where I want to start on 2024. So, at least from the reporting that I read, you weren't initially sure whether you were going to run for re-election. But you did ultimately choose. Okay, so confirmed. The reporting was correct. I'm curious, what made you decide ultimately to run again? And when you look at some of your colleagues, I don't know, Mitt Romney comes to mind. A lot was made of the fact that he decided to not run for re-election. Do you have any thoughts on maybe folks who made the opposite decision?
Well, I think it's a big decision, because when you make the decision, it's usually 8 years out from the end of your next term. You're 2 years out before the election, and then you've got 6 years in the Senate. So when you get a little older, you take a look at that and you go, I'm going to be 75 years old when I get out of the US Senate. Do I want to do this till I'm 75 years old? That's number one. Number two, it has had some impact on your family. And so, your family is important too. Very important, and making sure that they're on board is really important. I wasn't going to run, and it's one of the reasons I'm not broke up over losing, because truth is that we wanted to win the thing. We did everything we could do to win, but the truth is everything happens for a reason. And as I look back over the last 8 months, I wouldn't have been able to farm. Christ, they've had like 4 reconciliations that have kept people there all night. I don't even know if they're out of the Senate yet, and I've already harvested peas and started on my spring wheat. So it would have been really, really, really stressful. So that's the way it worked out. But why did I run? I ran because I had 18 years experience, and the people of Montana had put me there for 18 years, and I was finally in a position where people were coming to me, asking me what I could do to help them, when it had always been the other way around. I chaired the 2 largest, departments in the federal government. Veterans Affairs is number 2, and Defense is number 1. Those are the 2 largest budgets in the federal government. And so I was in a position where I could do some shit, not only for Montana, but for the whole country. And I believe in a strong defense, and I believe our veterans need to be treated appropriately. And we had done some things to do that. And, the good Lord puts you in a position to do stuff, and you can choose not to go through that door, or you can choose to go through the door. And I said, you know what? The people were good enough to elect me for 18 years when I was only going to serve for 12. And so we'll do it. We'll do it for one more cycle. But it wasn't to be, and that's okay, because to be honest with you, Gevin, I don't like to see the country go down the tubes and our democracy put at risk. But I got a hell of a lot better life now than I had when I was in the US Senate, getting up at 3 a.m, flying into Washington, D.C., getting there at 2 p.m, never knowing what your schedule is, wasting a ton of time. And as a farmer, time is your most valuable resource. It literally drove me crazy when I could come home and work 40 acres and I could see what I get done. Hell, I worked on legislation for 18 years. Some of it I got done, some of it I never got done because it got involved in the political bullshit in Washington, D.C. And I didn't get support from people here in the state that served with me. I'm talking about elected officials that claimed that, oh, they were all for things like conservation. And when in truth is they were not for conservation at all. They were for coal. That's what they were for. And so consequently, that's the way things ended up. But in the end, things worked out fine. Could I have done more good work if I'd have stayed in the Senate? Absolutely, unequivocally. And we're seeing the kind of work that's coming out of Congress. They shouldn't even be getting paid, quite frankly, because they're not doing jack shit.
Well, I want to ask you a few more questions about the race itself, but before I do, I want to ask a follow-up on the answer that you just gave. You alluded to the difficulties that exist when you're an elected member of Congress, when you're a senator, and your family is so many miles away from you. You mentioned the route that you took to go from Montana to DC and back. I'm guessing there must have been moments when, I know you have a wife and kids, when maybe one of your kids had a piano recital or a sporting event, something that maybe you'd even promised them you'd be there for. But because of your responsibilities in the Senate, you weren't able to be there. Are there any stories like that that sort of illustrate the challenges, that exist for members of Congress who are balancing representing their constituents, their communities in Washington, while also being there for their families back home?
Well, I mean, I live in Montana. Montana is 2 flights away from Washington, D.C. at a minimum. There's no direct flights in. If you're coming to Montana, you got to want to come here. Let's just put it that way. And so, yeah, I missed all of it, quite frankly. Occasionally you'd hit a Christmas concert because you were out on Christmas. But, the best example I've got a granddaughter that's going to be a senior in college, and she runs track at a D3 school. I've never seen her do the hurdles in person. I've seen her on TV, on tape, but I've never seen her in person run the hurdles. I will this spring. But that's the kind of stuff you miss out on. Now, I justified it mentally by saying, look, we're doing things to make the country a better place for those kids. And so we're going to continue to work. But the truth is that you missed out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's hearing stories like that should give all of us such respect for those who do, make the decision to run for office and to fight for their communities, to fight for our country in Washington. Just hearing the sacrifices that, folks like you made and those who are in office continue to make.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, and it really just Gevin, I'll just say it really kind of pisses me off because the truth is that you go back to Washington, you bust your ass, you come home, you bust your ass. You got no fucking time to go to Mar-a-Lago and play golf because you're working. And how this guy gets the support of working people when all he does is dick around on a golf course, I will never, ever understand.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Senator. And that's what I appreciate about you. See, because there's so many, especially folks on our side of the aisle in office right now, who have this very highbrow, convoluted way of speaking. But what I appreciate about you, Senator, it's refreshing, is you speak like a normal person. And I do hope that Democrats take a few pages out of your playbook, because I don't think we'll be able to, and we'll kind of talk about this later, but I don't think we'll be able to connect with working people again until we get back to knowing how to speak like regular people.
I agree. I agree. There's no need. Look, there's no need saying more words than you need to say. And like I said, I've already talked way, way, way more than I should. But
no.
But hell, when you're talking about yourself, you tend to do that. So,
well, I will say we miss hearing you, Senator. Although you have a very robust presence on social media, I'll say that. I do enjoy your tractor time Instagram videos. Those who don't follow you should go follow you, so you can stay up to date on what's new on the farm in Big Sandy. So I just want to put that plug in for you, Senator.
Yeah, I just gotta remember to cut those videos, because Maritza said you got to cut those farm videos. And I was able for the second time in the 47, 48 years we've been out here on the farm to be able to cut some dry land, second cutting alfalfa. And I forgot to take a video of it. Son of a bitch, you know?
Well, I think we're gonna have to have you back on this podcast, and maybe you can take us live, onto the tractor, into the
There
farm
you go.
to
Yeah,
get that
well,
up close and personal view.
if you want to do that, we can do that. It tends to be a bit tough getting a decent interview out of me because I'm focused on what's going on with the machine. But
I think that makes for the best interview, honestly.
all right.
Well, okay. I want to get back to 2024. Your election was obviously one of the most closely watched races in the country, and I was there canvassing for you just a few days before the election. I think going door to door and talking to real, is it Bozemanites or Bosemanians? I'm not.
Well, it depends on who you are and where you're from. You know, from the northern part of the state, we call it Los Angeles, but hey,
Well, true. I did hear that.
yeah,
I did hear Bose Angeles. Yeah.
they're Bosemanites. They're good people.
Bosemanites, yes. I think hearing from Bosemanites, personally, right, I think showed me just how close that race was going to be. But there still was this hope center that you might be able to edge out Shady Sheehy, as they called him, at the end of the day, because enough independents and Republicans would vote for you. Even though they might, vote for Donald Trump at the presidential level, because those were patterns that we've seen among Montana voters in the past. You've had some time to reflect on the race. I'm sure you've looked at some of the crosstabs and the exit polling. Do you have the sense of what went wrong?
I haven't looked at the crosstabs of the exit polling, but I'll tell you what I told a junior in high school when he wrote me a letter and said, "What went wrong?" The other guy got more votes than I did. That's what went wrong. Okay. The truth is that we had a lot of people move to Montana during the pandemic because, quite frankly, they thought there weren't a lot of rules here, and there weren't a lot of rules here. And then there was a show called Yellowstone, and a lot of people moved to Montana because of Yellowstone. So the bottom line is, I don't know what we had, 100,000, 150,000 new people in a state of a million people. That's pretty significant. I mean, we had enough where we picked up another House seat in the United States Senate in the last census. Those folks, we didn't do a good enough job letting them know who I was, and they classified me as being a national Democrat. And quite frankly, that hurt me because National Democrat doesn't actually sell very well in Montana right now. I think it could, with the proper kind of messaging and talking about what we're for instead of why we're better than the other guy. Talk about actually Democrats talking about why they need to vote for us because of kitchen table issues. But the folks that you talked to that said, "Yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, but I'm going to vote for Tester," they had known me since probably my days in the state legislature and saw what I had done and knew me for who I was and what my accomplishments are. And in every cycle, you know this, they try to make you into something you're not. And if they're successful in doing that, you got a much higher chance of losing the election. And there was a record amount of money spent in this race. They were successful in making me into something that I wasn't. And that's why I lost.
Senator, on a human level, though, how does that affect you?
Shit,
You're hearing the other side. You're hearing, your opponent
yeah,
say
well,
things about you that simply aren't true, and that people who know aren't true. How does that affect you on a human level?
well, look, in some cases it's frustrating. We got a hold of the TV stations with ads that were patently false and said, "Will you take these off?" And they said, "No, we won't take them off." And so life is what it is. And some things you can control, some things you can't. I had a good team around me that did what they needed to do to try to beat the crap out of people to make them do the right thing. But when people won't do the right thing, and we're seeing plenty of examples of that over the last 8 if they won't do the right thing, there isn't a hell of a lot you can do about it. You just need to continue to live your life and do the best you can do to do the right thing. And that's what I did. So personally, I don't think about it much. We started this conversation talking about losing 3 fingers in a meat grinder. Okay. Well, that isn't exactly the most joyous thing you can talk about. But the truth is that, people can say whatever the hell they want about me. I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know what my work ethic is. I know the family I've got. And I know a lot of times those guys throwing the stones that live in glass houses, that they're the ones, quite frankly, My folks used to say, you point one finger at somebody, you got three pointing right back.
Right back at you. Say it again, Senator.
And the truth is that, if you know who you are, they can say what they want. It doesn't really bother me. To be honest with you, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, they can,
Yeah.
there's, what are there, 330 million people in this country? I don't have to be
Yeah.
friends with all of them. I don't have to be friends with all of them. There's plenty of people out there to be friends with. If somebody wants to be an asshole, let them be an asshole. We'll find somebody else to be friends with.
I think that perspective, frankly, is so refreshing and so important. But I think it can be hard to have that perspective. I think for you, growing up on the farm, working the jobs that you worked, having the experience of losing your fingers and being in elected office for so long, I'm guessing those experiences help sort of forge you, into not only the public servant, but the person, that you are today, able to weather these storms no matter what comes your way.
Yeah. So, Gevin, when I was in high school, I got the urge to be in public service. I saw my folks work to make their community better. I said, well, we went to state legislature, and I thought it was pretty cool. So when I got out of college, even before I got out of college, I started doing things of public service: soil conservation board, school board, FSA committee, state legislature. All those things are learning experiences, and they tend to toughen your skin. And the toughest job I ever had was the school board. And
Really?
you better believe it. And because when you do things, when you make policies that impact kids,
People's children. Yep.
people tell you about it. And it tends to thicken your skin, and it tends to desensitize you. If I was a shrink, I'd probably say that's not a good thing to have happen. But the truth is, I'm not a shrink. And I think that you have to find ways to compartmentalize things to be able to, survive. And I do that all the time.
Yeah. I think a big part of what's happening politically in the background is the polarization that we're seeing, across the country. And it does feel like, on the theme of what we've been talking about with, it does feel like that the attitude of voting for a person, not because of their partisan label, but or even their politics, but because of who they are and because of the trust that you have in them. It feels like to me that attitude is getting harder and harder to find. And so I'm curious, how pessimistic are you about that dying sense of putting aside partisan labels and actually voting for the person who you think will actually best represent your community?
Well, look, partisan labels worked in my reelection. That's one of the reasons I got beat. But also, we had an opportunity to stop those partisan labels. I just didn't have the time to get around the state to show people who I was. Why? I had 2 major chairmanships, and I still farmed. And consequently, those obligations kept me in Washington, D.C. more than I would have liked, but it was necessary. And farming's farming. If you don't do it and you don't do it at the right time, you're going to lose. You're going to lose a lot of money. So that happened. But for Democrats to break down those partisan divides, number one, you have to have a good platform, and number two, you have to go out and listen to people. I didn't say talk to people. I said you need to go out and listen to people. And if you go out and listen to people and hear what they have to say, you will find that you have much more common ground, much more things you agree on than you disagree on. And then focus on the stuff you agree on and get some shit done. One of the things that bothers me right now is the partisan no compromise of bad ideals, things we heard about 15 years ago with the Tea Party movement. Now is becoming much more commonplace and much more accepted. This democracy won't work unless there's compromise. I'll just tell you that. Unless you have people compromising, nobody gets their own way. Nobody's right all the time. Nobody's wrong all the time. You compromise, you find the best path forward, and that's what you do. And the truth is now the old 15 years compromise, the dirty word. Now people aren't compromising. Take a look at the budget process now. I read an article the other day where Senator Kennedy out of Louisiana trying to blow the whole goddamn process up. Why? Because he doesn't want to compromise. Well, that's bullshit. That big, beautiful bullshit bill that was passed didn't have a lot of compromise in it, and it's a bad, bad, bad bill. And you got people running around the country saying, "Oh, this is really good. It's really good for the country." Bullshit. It's good for one set of people, the uber rich, not just the rich, but the uber rich. Everybody else gets screwed, including the climate.
That's right. I want to stick on this theme, Senator, of compromise that you just mentioned. When you were in the Senate, you were known as someone who would compromise, who'd work across the aisle, but also would actually have friendships with your Republican colleagues. It seems crazy, to think about today. I think now And you mentioned, you alluded to this a little bit earlier in our conversation, but, we're seeing the MAGA Republicans, they're doing their thing, okay. But then we're seeing folks on the Republican side like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis, people I understand you worked very closely with and maybe even had friendships with. They're trying to strike this balance between voting their conscience and doing what's right by their constituents on one hand, and on the other hand, trying to avoid the wrath of the leader of their party. So what is your take on, as you're seeing some of your Republican colleagues and in some cases friends trying to navigate that tension and dealing with these unprecedented pressures imposed by the Trump administration?
So I'm going to back up a little bit, not much, just a little bit. Susan Collins is a dear friend. She's somebody I worked with on defense committee. She was leadership on the Republican side. I was leadership on the Democratic side. She was a fine person to work with. She believed in compromise. She believed in working hard for what she wanted, but in the end, she believed in doing the best for the country. Lisa Murkowski, I've got an incredible amount of respect for. She is a hard worker. She understands government incredibly well, and she's in it for all the right reasons. Tom Tillis, I served with on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and Tom is a fun-loving dude. I mean, he really is. I mean, he beat a really, really good friend of mine, Kay Hagan, but the truth is that Tom is a good guy. And I'm not happy to see him not running again. I think that he probably would have won, maybe not won a primary. I think that's real sad, but he probably would have won the general for sure. But they're in a tough situation in that the president wants 100% of your support all the time, which, by the way, I've been married for 48 years. And my wife and I never agree on everything. In fact, if I get 70% agreement and she gets 70% agreement, that's pretty successful marriage. This guy wants it 100%, and he's not right most of the time. That's the problem. And I know it's got to be driving him crazy, but they've watched the people, whether it's Mitt, who said he wasn't going to run because of age, but, he crossed the president. He knew it was going to be a tough primary. I think he'd have won if he'd ran again, but you never know. And I don't know Utah that well. Whether it's Jeff Flake down in Arizona. I mean, the list is quite long, Lindsey Graham, who knows, by the way, Lindsey's no dope. He knows that this guy's a joke, but he won't do anything about it because he's afraid he might lose his job. And for some of these people, this job is their life. And if they lose this job, they'll literally will lose their life. They get off on people kissing their ass. I don't. Okay. I don't. I like people who are honest with me and straight up. Okay. But the truth is they're in a tough spot, and they know that if they cross the president, he's going to stand up and say, you're an asshole, and I'm going to get somebody to run against you. And right now, the way it's set up, and maybe this Epstein thing will change it for the MAGA crowd, because maybe they'll see that this guy is part of the deep state and understand that he's a problem. But until then, they're really afraid that they may lose their job. And they look at it from this standpoint, I think. If I'm not here, the same way I did when I decided to run an 18, if I'm not here, will my state be better off? And they're saying no. And so they're not challenging. I think if they got together en masse, because I know they all know better for the most part, there's a few that don't, they would, they could stop this stuff from happening, which is part of what needs to happen, but I haven't seen it start yet. But look, I still got great respect for them. Do I agree with what they transpired? No, but they're in a tough spot. They are. People can say, well, they can do whatever they want, and they just got to, they're making too much money. Let me tell you something. I lost more damn money in the United States Senate than I ever did, and that's a fact. I did, but the truth is because you got, I mean,
so you weren't off trading stocks, Senator.
I made more money than I ever made. I made 165 or 170,000 a year. But shit, you got to rent a house or you got to buy a house. You got to buy food. You got to buy all it. I mean that you got to buy food when you're in Montana, but you're feeding family there.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy. But at any rate, it isn't about making money. I really do think they're saying to themselves, what's the best thing I can do for my state? And they decided to go that way. Look, that's why Tillis didn't vote for that big, beautiful bill. He knew it was going to be devastating for the state.
That's right.
And he stood up. He said, I just can't do it anymore. I voted for Hegseth, and I had my nose plugged. But now I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's what transpires.
And I think there's a lesson, too, implicit in what you said, Senator. Maybe find a passion or purpose in life before going off and choosing to serve your community in elected office. That's what you did. And I think we'd be better off if more of our elected leaders had a sense of passion or purpose for something other than simply being an elected member of Congress, for example.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that would be like just to be a elected member of Congress your whole life. But I do think, I mean, the name of our podcast is Grounded. And one of the reasons it's grounded is because I'm still grounded in the land, and it's something that I believe in. It's something that, I think is really, really, really important. I just, I always come back to the soil. Truthfully, that might sound corny to you guys, but
no, I like that.
It's a fact.
I like that. Okay, a couple more questions for you, Senator, before we get to our fun lightning round questions. So I want to talk about. So Dave and I started this podcast to reach young men. I mentioned this to you, before we hopped on. The Democratic Party right now is struggling epically to connect with young men. I think a piece of that is this perception that the party is weak or not cool. But I think there's another piece to it too. Studies show that there's a mental health and loneliness epidemic afflicting young men right now. And I think that epidemic is driving many young men online into spaces where voices who don't have their best interests at heart are truly radicalizing them to be against our democracy. And so on that piece, how would you recommend that Democrats go about engaging young men, especially those who might be struggling with those issues of depression and loneliness right now?
Well, first of all, I'll say mental health is something that's, I think it's the biggest healthcare challenge we got in this country and will be for 50 years or longer. There's things that the government can do to help with that. Most of those programs have been cut with DOGE, which is a problem. But and by the way, has Congress sat back and let that happen without standing up and saying bullshit on this stuff? But I will tell you that Democrats got to go everywhere. You just got to go everywhere. I mean, another podcast, Joe Rogan's a prime example. I mean, you got the kid from Texas that got on. He's a Democrat. I haven't heard him speak. I haven't heard what he said, but everybody's raving. Well, he's a Democrat, for God's sakes. There's a lot of really, really good Democrats out there that have the best in mind for everybody. The other thing I will tell you is that, and this is hard for me. Hell, I'm pushing 70 years old. If you took this computer that I'm talking on and threw it out in the yard right now, the only thing I'd miss is I can't keep my books on it. I certainly wouldn't miss much else. I'll just tell you that. And if you get, and it's easy to do. It's easy to come down here and stick your head in this screen and go to places that you ought not be going and listen to bullshit propaganda that's oftentimes put up by Chinese and Russia, people who want to destroy this country. And change your opinion. You need to get out. You need to talk to people. You need to go play a game of cards, for Christ's sake, and sit across the table and bullshit and drink coffee and do those kind of things. Otherwise, it will take you to a place that is not healthy for you mentally, physically, or anything else. But Democrats, what they need to do is they need to get on some of these podcasts. They need to talk to people. About what they stand for. They got to be willing to take a few arrows if that's the case. And Republicans have been told don't do town hall meetings. Democrats are doing town hall meetings. That's a great start, by the way. That's a great start. Put yourself out there. I can't tell you how many people would come up to me and say, it didn't happen a lot. I shouldn't say that, but it happened on occasion. They come up and say, you know what? I am voting for you. I don't like you. And if you say, and I'd always say, well, why? And they would look at you and they'd say, because I just don't like you. They didn't have a goddamn reason. They just were told by somebody that you were a bad person. That happened. I never, by the way, when I asked that question, I never had a person say, well, I don't like you because you voted for you voted for.
It's never the policies. No,
I don't like you because you were the one that designed that infrastructure bill. I don't like that. They never talked to you about that. It was, well, I just don't like you. Well, I'm sorry. I'm got bad haircut and I'm missing 3 fingers on my left hand. But that's fine. Okay. But I mean, it's just
right.
It's just so much bullshit. But Democrat, what I'm saying is this: you got to go to where the voters are if you want to get the vote. You vote. And if you don't go to where the voters are, and there's plenty of examples of presidential campaigns and Senate campaigns and gubernatorial campaigns where people say, well, I'm not going to do that because it's hard. When in fact, you got to do the hard things if you're going to get elected.
That's right. Okay. So, Senator, there's so many issues I know that are near and dear to your heart that you fought hard for, not only in the Senate, but your time, in the state legislature in Montana. You're a former public school teacher, so I know education is important to you. Veterans issues very important to you. We talked about climate change. And on so many of these issues and more, President Trump and his administration, they're taking a wrecking ball to so many of to wind the clock back on the progress that we've made on so many of those issues. So my question to you, Senator, is of all the things that Trump is doing to our government or to our country right now, what are you most concerned about?
So this won't be something that voters say, this is, Tester's right on this. It's due process. Due process is fundamental to our democracy. If the government can just come in and arrest you and throw you in a jail without you having any rights, we're in big trouble. Yeah. And so that's what I would say. The rule of law and due process.
That's a great answer.
Doing his level best to destroy it.
Yeah. Well, Senator, I could talk.
I would just say this.
Go ahead.
That's going on with this immigration might apply to brown people now, but don't expect it to always apply to brown people. Because if ICE can throw a United States senator to the ground and nobody stands up and says, what the hell is going on? Nobody in the United States Senate said, we need to have a hearing on this. We need to bring in ICE and find out what their goddamn policies are. We need to find out why they're wearing masks. We need to find out why they do what they do. Let me tell you.
Terrifying.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
It's terrifying. Yep. Well, Senator, I could talk to you all day. This has been an amazing conversation, but I know you have a farm to tend to, so I'm going to ask you a few lightning round questions. There are 3 that we ask all of our guests. So I'm going to ask you those, but I have a bonus one for you as well. Okay, so first question, Senator. What is your favorite movie or TV show, ideally about sports, but it doesn't have to be if you don't have a favorite sports TV show or movie?
There's probably some pretty good sports. There's pretty good sports episodes of one with Leslie Nielsen being the umpire in baseball. I remember what that was. Is pretty good. But my favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption.
Classic.
I've seen it 400 times, and I always watch it, and it's always great, and I always know what's going to happen, and it always brings a tear to my eye. And it's always really good.
Is that what you would watch on the plane? On the planes, plural, from from DC to Montana, Montana, DC?
Usually I sleep when I'm on the plane because it's too damn early.
I get that.
Plane, so,
right.
But yeah, that's it. That's
a good one. Okay. And I'm curious. So we usually ask our guests what their favorite or their go-to pump-up music or pump-up song is. So I guess for you, you're a former music teacher, you're a former music major. So I'm curious, what is the music that you listen to maybe instead of, before a big game, when you're on the tractor or getting ready for a long day of work, or maybe during your travels, between Montana and DC?
I will tell you that I'm a product of the 70s. I graduated from high school in 1974, and I listened to 70s music. Recently the Beach Boys dude died. I can't think of his name right now, but Brian Wilson.
Yeah,
he recently died, and I've been listening to a little more Beach Boys than I usually do. I went to a concert of theirs in Great Falls in like 1973.
Oh, that's awesome!
And it was an amazing concert. But and I flow all over the place when it comes. I'm a Doobie Brothers guy. I love the Doobie. I love the Eagles. I love all those dudes. In My Room by the Beach Boys is something I've been listening to. It's just the harmonies are amazing, and it's
I'm gonna add that to my playlist.
Really good.
All right, great answer. Okay, and then the third lightning round question: what is your go-to comfort food?
So, I don't
I love the food I had when I was in Montana, by the way.
I don't know the
that.
definition
I love the food I had when I was in Montana, by the way.
I don't know the definition of comfort food, but I would say it's steak and potatoes. But
Yeah.
that isn't what I visualize as comfort food. Comfort food like stew or
Right. Of course.
I'm gonna say French toast. Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I had some great food. I think it was called the Western Cafe.
Yeah.
In Bozeman.
Good.
Yeah.
Western is good.
That was a good one. I mean, the decor, you just step in and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm in Montana.
Right. Yeah. Good.
Great answer, though. Okay, bonus question for you, Senator. I think you're going to like this one. This was Jill's idea, so I do want to give her credit for that.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so Montana famously does not have a single professional sports team. If, Senator, one day Montana were to get a pro sports team, two-part question. One, what sport would you want it to be? And two, what would you want the team to be called?
Well, baseball is my favorite sport to watch, but I don't think it would be a baseball team. I think it'd be football.
Football.
Most Montanans
Yeah.
prefer football. So I would say a football team.
Okay.
Because right now it's Montana State University and the University of Montana.
Right.
The Grizzlies, Bobcats are the ones that people tend to go to. And in fact, my grandson's going to be playing football up here at a small NIA school.
Wow. All right.
Cool. His practice just starts today, 4th of August.
Hey, shout out to him.
Yeah. But that's what I would say, football.
All right. And is there a name that you'd go with? I mean,
yeah,
so
I actually do. I think we would call them the Montana Maulers.
The Maulers. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so much better than anything I could have predicted you'd say. Jill and I were like, I was like, oh, well, there's that new NHL team in Utah. They took the Mammoth, so the alliteration there is gone. Yeah. We were like, what else did we say? I think she said the Montana Bison. And we're like, oh, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
I mean, you can't, see, that's the problem with Jelly. You can't have North Dakota Bison. You can't have the Bison North Dakota. Okay? All right? You got to let North Dakota keep the Bison. That's okay. We'll go a different direction,
I love it, the Montana Maulers. Okay, Jill, well, there's your answer. It was a great question and a great answer from the Senator. Well, Senator, our time together has sadly come to an end, but I want to thank you so much for the past 60 minutes of your time. This has been truly one of the most refreshing conversations that I've had in a very long time, and I'm so grateful. I know our listeners, will leave this conversation feeling educated, inspired, uplifted, and truly, convinced that we need more people like you in politics. And I'm very sad that the Senate no longer counts you as a member. I'm very happy that your farm and your family have you back full time. But I know that although you might not be in office right now, you'll continue to lead the way for us, not just our party, but also our country, as you've done over your whole life. So I want to thank you for that. I want to encourage everyone to check out the Grounded podcast. And I see you want to say something, so I want to give you the last word.
Well, I just say, look, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and visit with your listeners to talk about things that I see important, that I think you see important, and would ask the folks out there that are part of it, please tune into our podcast, Grounded with Maurice, Joe, and Jon Tester. But also stay involved. I mean, the truth is Congress will step up the plate if they get pressure from their constituents, and they need to feel that pressure for them to be able to do their job and feel like they got somebody that's got their back. That's important. I've said many times, these folks I served with are good people, and I get a lot of shit for saying that, by the way, because a lot of people say, how could good people let this happen? But they're letting it happen because they think that Trump is the only thing they have to listen to, when in fact their constituents are far more important.
Absolutely. Wise words. Live from Big Sandy, Montana, the man, the myth, the legend, Senator Jon Tester. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, we're back. Great interview with Senator Tester, Gevin. What a great what a great guy, what a great interview, and what a good role model for young men in particular, but for everybody in this difficult moment. I'm so glad that we got to hear from him. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so Christmas in August. For Gevin Reynolds, in the sports calendar, there's lots of exciting moments, but I do not think that there is any moment as exciting for you, Gevin, as the beginning of a new NFL season. You got
just love preseason football.
Yeah, exactly. You love watching third stringers.
Yes.
But yeah, you got
Danny Dimes versus Anthony Richardson.
You got Hard Knocks on HBO. You got preseason games going on. Everybody's drafting their fantasy football leagues. It's like, it's in the air. You can tell, for some people it's a little bit sad because it means that summer is ending and it's going to start getting cold again.
Well,
but
there's that.
I think for most of us, it's just a cool time of year. Fall's so great. And
I do not mind if the temperature starts to drop a little
bit. Fall's so great. It's like, you're almost at that period where like you can go to the bar, get some wings, watch your team, whatever. So, all right. So I think we should do 3 things for our long-awaited NFL preview this week. So
our fans have been waiting with bated breath.
Exactly. So I think let's do 3 things. Let's start by giving some people advice about fantasy football, because I know a lot of people have actually started playing fantasy football. I feel like the numbers go up every year. And so I think, like, as 2 people who I know have played a lot of in a lot of fantasy football leagues over the years, like, I want to ask you about that. And then maybe we'll talk about some storylines that you're looking at for this upcoming season. And then we'll finish with our long-awaited Super Bowl predictions for this year.
Whoa.
So, and then maybe after that we'll play a game. So, all right. So, Gevin, let's start it off. Fantasy football. What's one piece of advice that if people have never done fantasy football before, you give them?
Okay, I love the question because I think you're right. I think people are starting to play fantasy football more and more. Lots of great sites out there. There's the NFL Fantasy app. There's ESPN Fantasy. There's CBS Sports, Yahoo. I'll keep going if any of these sponsors perhaps want to support Lowlights.
And also for people who don't, I'm springing this on you, but for people who don't even really know, who've heard about it and are kind of like, oh, yeah. Like, what is that? How does that work?
So fantasy football, season-long fantasy football, you get together with a group of friends, family members, coworkers, and you embark on a season-long competition to see who can draft, first of all, the best team of players at all different positions. Quarterback, running back, wide receivers, tight end. You build your team, and over the course of the actual NFL season, you're playing in tandem, and every single week you're adjusting your roster, you're setting your roster, you're picking which of the players you drafted you want to start that week, and your roster of players goes head to head against the other competitors in your league's roster of players.
Right.
So
every team, everybody can only draft a player once. So when there's a draft, every player in the league is technically available, and you go through and you pick Patrick Mahomes for whatever you pick. There's a list that people usually use of who people think is going to be the best, and then every team goes in order and picks. So once the first 2 teams have picked their 2 players, you can pick.
And when we say every team, that's like each person, each member of the fantasy football league, they're managing a team. So yes,
exactly. And then you pick, and as Gevin said, you go through and you pick. And sometimes the advice is, it's a better strategy to take a running back, because there's only like 5 good running backs. So take one of them early and then take wide receivers later. And some people take a quarterback first, and some people take a wide receiver, tight end, whatever. That's where the strategy comes into play. But in general, yes, exactly as Gevin said, you go through and everybody gets their, to pick their own team and then root for those players. It gives you something to root for every week.
Yeah. So if I have Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes puts up 4 touchdowns, also rushes for 1 and, throws 400 yards, then I'm going to get a lot of points from Patrick Mahomes that week. And if I'm playing against someone who might have Pro Bowl quarterback Drake May as their starting quarterback that week, who throws 3 picks, 0 touchdowns, and 20 yards, then I'll very easily, most likely, if I have a good roster of other players, prevail over Dave that week, because who else would draft Pro Bowl quarterback Drake May other than Dave?
Anybody who wants to win, I guess.
Okay. Sure. So yeah, you do that throughout the season, and you're going head to head every week. It gets to the point of the Super Bowl, and whoever wins that head to head battle wins the league. And a lot of times people will join a league and they'll have prizes, and whoever wins gets that prize. Or I don't know, in your leagues, do you have like a loser sort of like a runner-up?
Yeah,
sort of
I was in a league like this once, and
Yeah.
like people have these crazy things where like if you finish last, you have to like spend 24 hours in IHOP, and you can like reduce it like for every pancake you eat, you reduce it by an hour, and
we have to get a tattoo.
Yeah, right. Some leagues people get tattoos. Like there was one of the leagues I was in one year, I almost had to take the SATs. Because I almost finished dead last and was going to have to sign up for a practice SAT. I did not, though. I won the toilet bowl, the last place game between the 11th place and the 12th place team, and I won. So didn't have to do it.
Nice. Well, I mean, Dave, it's just your youthful charm. You could have gone to take the SAT, and people probably would have assumed you were,
yeah, exactly.
A member of the demographic.
I do get that a lot. I mean, we don't need to talk about my actual age, but I get a lot. People being like, "Oh, how old are you? Like 28, 29?" Like, no, I'm not.
I've gotten it on your behalf.
Yeah, no.
How old is Dave? I tell them, and they're like, "Really?"
Yeah. Yeah, well,
we didn't know he was 55.
Credit my mom. Shout out Kathleen Cabell.
There you go. Okay, so the question you asked me was, what is the number one piece of fantasy advice that I have? Coming at this as a two-time NFL 6'4" fantasy football Super Bowl champion, my advice, it's very easy to fall into the trap of joining multiple leagues. Maybe if you're new to fantasy, you weren't thinking of doing that, but I've been in a situation where I've been a part of like my NFL league, a law school league, and to me, when you're in more than one league, you're just not able to give your all to either or to any, right? So my advice would be to pick a league, pick a group of friends, pick a group of loved ones, go all in on that league. And I think you'll do better because all of your eggs will be in that basket. You'll be only focused on one roster. You won't forget to set your roster if a player is on a team that's on a bye that week. So my advice, join one league, have that one team, and go all in.
Yeah, so I think that that's like great advice because as Gevin was saying, and just to make it very clear, like it's called fantasy football, but you get all your points based on real football. And so you get like, as you're watching the games on Sunday, part of the fun is knowing like, oh, my quarterback is Pro Bowl quarterback Drake May, and my two running backs are this guy on the, the Packers and this guy on the Raiders. And so when you're watching the games, you can say like, oh, that guy just scored a touchdown. He's on my team. Hooray. Because you get points based on how your players were really doing week to week. But if you're in like 2 or 3 or 4 leagues, I've had that experience where like I'm at the bar and I'm watching games with people and somebody scores a touchdown and I'm like, do I have that guy? Like, I think I have that guy in one league, or wait, no, am I playing against him in another league this week? Or was I playing?
That's the worst when that starts to happen, when you're cheering for one player because you have him on your roster in one league, and then you're rooting against him at the same time because you're in a different league where your opponent has that player on their roster.
Right. It just gets too confusing. And I'm just like, or you forget to set your lineup because
that's what I'm saying.
Because as Gevin said, you have to remember like if there's one week where you're like in the middle of the season, their teams have bye weeks, so they aren't playing, some of them. And like, if you don't remember to check that league and bench your wide receiver because he's not playing that week or he's hurt, and put in your
goose egg.
Yeah, put in your backup guy or you pick up somebody else to play. Like, all of a sudden you get to Sunday and you're like, oh, I messed up.
Yep.
And then you feel bad because you feel like you weren't paying attention, and your friends are like, oh, come on, man, why didn't you? I just feel like, anyway, so as Gevin said, one league, one team. League. That's
one league, one.
I think that's the way to go. I mean, maybe 2 if you have to, but one league.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, I think I'm commissioner of my fantasy football fall league. You can call me Mr. Commissioner. I don't know that
I was once commissioner of the NFL fantasy football
I'm not sure that I make quite as much as NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, but close. Compensation is similar. He makes about $50 million a year, something like that, and I would say I'm in the ballpark.
When I worked for the league, I saw your salary as commissioner of your league. So I saw the numbers. It's close.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, my advice to people who are just drafting for the first time is take a quarterback early. That goes against a lot of the other advice when you Google it and you look it up, and you can also
running back early.
Yeah, you can also just like on most of these sites, you can just let the computer draft your team for you. And frankly, the computer is going to do a pretty good job. For people who are stressed about it, just let the computer do it. It'll get you good players, and you'll have a decent team.
Yeah. Because to be clear, like, you guys set a draft date and time as a league.
Correct.
So if you're not available at that point in time, or if you are and don't trust your picking abilities, or don't have a friend who can advise you, you can do that auto draft.
Right.
And
that's one of the fun things. Like some people meet up and do it in person. They like draft like around a table or they go to a bar. But in my league for years, we've just done it online because everybody's all over the place. And so, hey, you just like, you draft and you mess with each other and you send each other texts, whatever. And it's super fun to go through and draft the players. But yeah, that's my advice. If you're really worried and you don't know what to do, just make sure, just look at the list, Google it and say like, best quarterbacks for fantasy football 2025. And then just take one of the top, 6, 8 guys. Because unless they get hurt, which happens less often for quarterbacks, your team is probably going to be decent. Your team is probably going to be
get hurt.
Decent.
They won't be out for as long.
Yeah, exactly. Like your team you're probably going to be okay. Like you might not be the best team in the league, but you're going to be okay. So that's my advice. All right.
Actually, I want to revise my advice. Do not draft Pro Bowl quarterback Drake.
Again, unless you want to win. Unless you want to win your league, that is. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, storylines. So last year, Gevin, the Washington Commanders, going into the year, were not expected to be good. They had not been good for years. That franchise
scandal surrounding the team.
Yeah, that team they had gone 4-13 in 2023. Nobody was really expecting that much. People thought they might be better. Instead, they drafted Jaden Daniels, 2nd overall. He was an absolute he was an absolute revelation at quarterback. He was incredible. And the team went 12-5 and made it all the way to the NFC Championship game before losing to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Gevin, give me a team this year that people aren't paying attention to that was not very good last year, but it's going to be good this year.
See, I want to say the Atlanta Falcons. That would mean that I'd have to accept the premise that they were not good last year. And I don't want to go so far as to say we weren't good last year. People may remember, or if you weren't following the Falcons, what happened last year. We signed Kirk Cousins to this 4-year, $1 million contract.
Yeah,
exactly. Longtime veteran quarterback, 4 or 5-time Pro Bowler. But kind of further along in his career than he was, I feel like, when he was really in his prime. But still, we were excited about the prospect of Kirk Cousins and what he could achieve in Atlanta. A few months after that, the Falcons shocked the world by drafting Michael Penix Jr. in the first round of the NFL draft. Okay.
Including Kirk Cousins.
He was pretty surprised. Imagine you're Kirk Cousins and you think you're about to be at least the interim future, of this new team that signed you this nice deal, paying you a lot of money. You think you still got it. And then your team goes and drafts a rookie, a rookie quarterback in the first round of the draft. So going into the season, Kirk Cousins was starting, and he was doing pretty well. But eventually, turnovers caught up to him, pulled him out. Michael Penix ended up starting, I think, for 4 or 5 games at the end of the season. So honestly, the storyline that I'm following most closely, this season, the team that I think people got to be looking at to turn things around from last season, I got to say my Falcons. I think Penix has an opportunity to first full season as a starter. Got other offensive weapons at the running back position. We got Bijan Robinson, very talented rusher. We have Drake London at the wide receiver position, who put up great numbers last year. We got Kyle Pitts, a tight end, and I think some of those weapons together should give Penix some good options, in the passing game and in the rushing game. So I'm looking for the Falcons to turn things around this season. I'm not going to give you a prediction specifically for how many games we're going to win, except that we are going to win the Super Bowl. So however many games it's going to take, for that to happen in the regular season is how many games it's going to take for that to happen. We're going to get to the postseason and we're going to go all the way. So the Atlanta Falcons.
You heard it here first. All right. For me, this just feels like such a Homer show now, but I'm wearing the shirt. I'm wearing my Patriots on a t-shirt.
You are.
And all I will say about that is the Patriots were one of the worst teams in the league the last 2 years. 4-13 last year, 4-13 the year before that. Nobody's feeling bad for Patriots fans. We've had more success than I ever expected that they would have. But we have a brand new coach who used to be a linebacker for the team in the early 2000s, Mike Vrabel.
Shout out Mike Vrabel.
We have, brand new coaching staff, basically top to bottom, that just seems much more professional than last year. And the Patriots have like the easiest schedule of any team in the NFL. They get the Browns, they get the Saints, they get the Titans, they get they get the Giants. They get to play a bunch of teams that are not expected to be good this year. So I don't think it would be crazy for the Patriots to win 9 or 10 games. Like, I really think, I think that's a very realistic possibility. And then to not be a homer, I think another team that people might be sleeping on a little bit is the Broncos. I think that team,
Sean Payton and Bo Nix.
Yeah, and I think people kind of saw that they made the playoffs last year, so they don't count as a surprise team. But I think people kind of aren't talking about them this year as being a team that will still be good or maybe even better than they were last year.
Yeah,
and it would not surprise me if they give the Chiefs a run for their money for the AFC West. It would not surprise me. So that's another team, and we'll see.
I mean, a little bit of symbolism, or not even symbolism, but a little bit of history. This year's Super Bowl is going to be Super Bowl 60. Well, you know which team won Super Bowl 50? The Broncos. So maybe, a decade later.
But actually, this leads me to my next question for you, Gevin. So speaking of Super Bowl 60,
yes,
who's going to play in the game and who's going to win?
What? I mean, a minute ago, I already told you. We went the Falcons. But for the purpose of this segment, I'll put the Falcons aside. Oh, boy. There have been a few teams that have been sort of on the cusp of Super Bowl greatness the past few years. I'm thinking the Lions. I'm thinking, the Chiefs came so close last year. The Bills have been knocking on the door in the AFC as well.
They really, knock.
I mean,
knock.
I mean, Lamar Jackson still hasn't won his ring, and I don't expect anything less, than a stellar season out of who I think should have been the MVP last year. So this is tough. But if I had to pick who I think is going to win the Super Bowl this year, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that's a good guess.
Over the Detroit Lions.
Woo! All right. So I like those picks. So, okay, I feel a little pressure here because last year, I do this, I do this pick every year. I do these picks with my friend Maddie D. Shout out Maddie D.
Maddie D.
Last year, and you can go back in our text and check. I picked Chiefs Eagles. And I didn't put any money on it, so I didn't benefit. But that was my pick last year.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of pressure. I have a lot to live up to this year.
For sure.
Out of the NFC, I'm going to go chalk, and I'm going to once again pick the Eagles. I just think that team is the most talented roster in the NFL, and I think that team is firing on all cylinders. Stay healthy, Saquon. That defense is amazing, and I just think that team is going to be hard to beat again. And out of the AFC, I think this is. You picked the Ravens, which is where I was like potentially leaning. I'm going to say it's the Bills year. I'm going to say
You think it's the Bills year?
I think they honestly, if you go back and look at that game they lost to the Chiefs last year, that was a very close game. If Josh Allen completes one more pass,
I think
they might have won that game. I think their roster is even a little better this year. So I think I'm going to go Bills, Eagles in the Super Bowl this year.
Well, this is the Bills' last year in their stadium. I actually will be at one of their games this year in December. So send me thoughts, send me prayers, send me a winter coat, perhaps. Send me a lair. And they'll be playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think is a team that should be in this conversation as well.
All right.
Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase.
Oh, that team.
Higgins.
I mean, that team is going to score a lot of points. Question is,
they're going to score
how many points are they going to allow?
That's the issue with the Bengals.
Yeah,
that's
always.
The Bengals. But Dave, speaking of the Super Bowl, there was a trivia question that I had for you, unless you wanted to say anything else.
No, go ahead.
Picks for next year. Okay, so we've been talking for the past few minutes about which teams we think will win the Super Bowl this upcoming season. As you know, there are a number of NFL teams that have never won the Super Bowl, who have never hoisted Lombardi Trophy or brought it to their hometown.
Okay.
So my question to you, Dave, there are 12 NFL teams that have never won a Super
12.
Bowl.
Okay.
Can you name all 12?
All right, I'm going to do this division by division. In the
Sounds good.
AFC East, the Buffalo Bills have never won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And that's it. In the AFC North, Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep.
That's it. AFC South, the Tennessee Titans have never won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
The Jacksonville Jaguars have never won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And the Houston Texans have never won the Super Bowl.
That's right.
AFC West, the LA Chargers have never won the Super Bowl.
Correct.
And that's it. Those other teams have.
That's right.
Okay, what am I at? I think I'm at 7. All right, let's go to the NFC East.
Okay.
Cowboys won, Giants won, Eagles won, Commanders won. They've all won. NFC North.
Yeah, they've all won.
NFC North. Give me the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep. Sorry for interrupting. Yep.
Give me the Detroit Lions, who have never won a Super Bowl.
Of course.
Okay. NFC South. Your Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
But
that'll change.
And the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have never won a Super Bowl.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
I think you just got.
Oh, no. There's one more. In the NFC
there's
West,
one more.
In the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals have never won the Super Bowl.
There you go.
Boom.
Never won.
Boom.
Never won.
Boom.
Yep.
Bang.
Yep. Nice.
There you go.
Very nice.
Well, according to Gevin, that could change. That could change this year if the Lions make it.
Yeah.
We could knock one of those teams off the list.
But remember that my original prediction, was Falcons. So but I put them aside
on the
for
off chance that doesn't happen.
Of our conversation, right? On the off chance it doesn't happen, then it will be 11. But
yeah, right.
Falcons are like,
well, here's to a Patriots Falcons Super Bowl rematch. And
I'm good.
and like Gavin said at the beginning, thank you all for listening to season 1. This concludes our first season, hopefully of many, and we cannot wait to see you right back here for season 2 of Lowlights very soon. And we hope to have more updates about that soon. So take care, everybody, and hope to see you soon.